In this episode of Our Hunting Stories, I caught up with Matthew Hutson of Hutson Outdoors YouTube channel as he harvests a double drop tine giant Missouri public land whitetail. What starts out as a scouting mission turns into an encounter with a buck of a lifetime. After you finish listening to the story here, head on over to Hutson Outdoors on YouTube, subscribe, and watch the video as the entire hunt plays out. I'm your host, Derek DeBoer. Thank you for joining us. Right. He's down.
My name's Matthew Hutson, and I'm with Hutson Outdoors. It's just me and my brothers and my cousin, and we've all hunted since we were just little kids and just grew up, and every time we get together, all we talk about almost is hunting. And so I just been hunting since I was a kid, and whenever I got a little older and I got married and we all kept hunting, and I told my cousin and my brothers, I was like, we just need to start filming this just for fun. It's kind of the same deal you were talking about with the podcast. We really didn't have, we wasn't looking for fame or anything like that. We just wanted to have the stories on there and be able to remember, and all of us have kids now, so we wanted to have those memories of our children and the memories of all the hunts on there. And so we just started recording our hunts, and we just happened to get lucky and kill some deer and get it on film, and it kind of took off a little bit. And it's not like it's a great big channel or anything, but it's growing some, and we're just having a great time doing it. So that's really what our channel's about, and what, us hunting is all about. Just doing it for fun and having a good time. And that's what I want it to be about anyway. Is not just about the success, but just having a good time outdoors,
Yeah, I think that's super important. We've just started dabbling with that here the last couple of years. We've hunted 15, 20 years as well, my brother and I. And I filmed a little bit at the beginning and then kind of lost track of that because it's more difficult than it seems.
Right.
But I think it's extremely important, especially with time constraints. You get in a hurry, you try to rush out and get your hunts in, and you lose a lot of the details. So I think it's really important, like you said, for family and others who share an interest. Getting some of this recorded has been a blast. So
just to go off what you were saying, whenever what happened with us, it was a ton of work, but what happened was I started out by myself the first time, like my brothers and them, they didn't film or nothing. I took a camera out, and the very first year that I went out, I went to some public land in Missouri, and it was the very first week I shot a buck on film, and I missed the shot I didn't get the shot on camera, but I got him coming in and all that, and I just didn't have the camera in the right spot when I shot him. I killed that buck, then go straight to Kentucky, and then I killed another buck in Kentucky on film, and that was my very first year of filming. So then I'm like, oh man, this is going to be incredible. Which is not, every year's not like that, but then I was stuck on filming. I loved it. It was so fun being able to tell my friends what happened and then actually show them footage. Then they would know I wasn't lying about what happened.
Yeah. Exactly. That's so much fun. So you are from Missouri, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yep, I'm from Missouri. That's where we live. I live in Southwest Missouri, kind of around Springfield, and I drive all over the state. I hunt all over the place. And we even go to different states and hunt as well. But we normally focus on Missouri just because that's where we're from. And most of the guys, we all have, jobs. I work for myself, so I can hunt a little bit more than they do, but we all work quite a bit. So we normally take one trip out of state each year, and then we just hunt Missouri nonstop.
Sometimes that's harder when you work for yourself. I did for a period of 4 years, and you feel really guilty when you take time off. That's pulling straight from your own pocket. So Sometimes that's
Right.
harder.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah, sometimes it is because most jobs, if you have, you get the paid vacation, and so it's
Yep.
fine being gone because you're still getting paid. It's the same, and then when you're by yourself, that's not happening. So it all just depends. But I've been blessed enough to, be able to get some where I made enough and have people working for me to where I don't have to worry about it too much, and I can, especially, I mean, and I'm so into it especially when it gets down to the last week of October through November. I mean, I just do not work. I just hunt every single day. So, and
Yeah.
that makes it nice to where when you can go like that, you are a lot more you can be a lot more successful because there's a lot of guys, they're really good hunters, but they don't kill bucks every year because they just can't go very much. And I'm just blessed to be able to go quite a bit.
Right. That sounds great. That's an awesome situation. Well, let's get into this year. So I'm super excited to watch your video, but I purposely held off because I wanted to do this interview with you. I knew you were going to take some time to schedule this phone call, and I can't wait to watch the video, but I didn't want to because I didn't want to spoil it for myself. I wanted to hear it firsthand from you, but I cannot believe the buck you got this year, and I'm so anxious to hear your story on it.
Yeah. So do you want me to go right into it then? What happened
Let's
this year?
do. I'll try not to interrupt you, but if I have questions, I'll probably ask them.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, go ahead because if I might miss something or something might not make sense. Just go ahead and interrupt me. It won't hurt me. So basically, I have been hunting. I have been hunting in Missouri, like I said. Well, I only have been hunting public land for only about 3 or 4 years. And is when I started hunting. I've always had private places to hunt. Well, the private areas just got to where I wasn't having very much luck, and I was like, I'm going to try new stuff. And I live in South Missouri. The deer in South Missouri aren't near as big as in northern Missouri. And even in the middle of the state, the more north you go in Missouri, the bigger the deer get. And so I decided I was going to go north and go to some public pieces of land and hunt. Well, so that's what I've been doing. Well, I've had some decent luck, but not too much. So this year I decided, this is kind of what changed the game for me, but what I decided I was going to do, I was like, I am tired of just going, especially early season, I just go into areas where I knew, that I'd had luck in the past or whatever, and I'd find a little bit of sign that I'd set up, and I just never really had very good, I never killed a deer early season hardly. I only would kill deer in the rut. And so I said, I'm going to change things up. I'm not going to do it the same way because obviously the same way isn't working. So I decided I'm just going to drive and drive and drive. So I have a little Ford Focus that is just falling apart. It has like 200,000 miles, but I use it for work. I use it for all kinds of stuff. Well, that car is, I just drive that thing to death. Well, but the week before season started, Missouri season opens on September 15th. And so I decided, I was like, I'm going to go up there and I'm just going to drive and around the weekend before season started, and I'm just going to drive around and see what I see. And I decided that that's what was going to be my plan. I was just going to use my vehicle basically as a scouting tool. And there's some areas in Missouri that's easier to see around, like you can go check fields and drive through the public lane areas and look around. And then there's other areas that's more difficult because there's more rolling hills and timber. So I decided I was going to go to areas that were more open and just drive around, and that's what I did. I drove around for 3-4 hours on a Saturday evening and just saw one bachelor group of bucks that weren't too big. And then right at dark, I'm driving down this gravel road, and way down the gravel road, probably a mile down the gravel road, I see 3 deer cross the road, and I could tell just by seeing them cross the road, I could tell. I was like, those are some big bodied deer. So I just take off down the gravel road, drive, and I get to, and they cross the road into this bean field. I could not see them, so I turn around, come back the other way, and then all of a sudden, I spotted their horns. Well, they had kind of crouched down in these standing beans, and so I just pretty much threw the car in park, and I'm sitting there looking, trying to see them, and I start filming, and they take off running, and I'm talking about giant bucks. And I said, and these bucks were probably, I would say these bucks were probably, I don't know, 500-600 yards from public land. They were on private land, but they were that, they weren't very far at all. And so I said, this is working. I actually, my kids were with me, but I called my buddies and I said, this is working. Driving around, I'm actually finding out where bigger deer are, and it's helping me. And I'm even seeing where a lot of deer are. And so I continued to do that. Opening day of season, I got out there and started hunting, never even got in the stand. I literally just drove around. And I was looking for those bucks again, and I just drove and drove and drove. And right at dark, once again, I we'll drive past this bean field, and far back in the back of the bean field, my buddy who was with me at that time, he was filming me that weekend. He says, I think there was a deer in the back of that field. And so I stop the car, throw it in reverse, I back up, and when I do, it spooks the deer. Well, the deer's probably 300 yards away, 200 and something, 300 yards away, and I see his white tail go up, so I throw up the binos, and I only see him for like 2 jumps before he jumps into the woods. And I looked at my buddy, I said, that deer is huge. We're going to hunt that deer. And this was actually on private or on public land. And I told him, I said, that's the deer we're going to hunt. And so just luckily we happened to drive by when he was there. And, so that's how that's how it started. And this was the opening weekend. So we were there, I think, for 4 days straight, and we hunted all around. I told my buddy there was a thicket on one side. Actually, there was a thicket on each side of the bean field. And I said, he was headed one direction. I said, he probably bedded on this side. We hunted that. We hunted all over. We hunted for 4 days in a row, never seen him at all. We saw some other small bucks, never seen him at all. Went back the next weekend. It was even worse. We didn't even hardly see bucks. We hunted, and we had saddles, like tree saddles, and we even hunted off the ground some, but we were very mobile. We would go to one spot. If that didn't work out, we'd go to another spot. If that didn't work out, we'd go to another spot. We just constantly moving. I just wanted to see the buck again and see where he was. And honestly, I was being pretty aggressive. I really didn't even care if I spooked him. I just wanted to see how big, where he was. And that's a little bit, I know some people cringe at that because, they're like, oh, he's there. Don't be messing things up. But I was like, I'm not going to waste my time. If he's left this area, I'm not going to mess with it. I just want to, see if I can find him. And once again,
well, I think some people say, if you do spook a big buck and they get out of there safely, they feel safe because they have an exit strategy that they can count on, so it's probably worth it, especially if you have just a few days. You've got to be pretty aggressive to find that deer you're after.
Right, exactly. And I wasn't just running through the woods or anything like that, but we were going from just field to field to edge to this. We were like, well, maybe he's using this area. And while we were walking around, we were finding signs. And even early September, we were already finding rubs. We found 2 or 3 scrapes, and that's early September. I shouldn't say early, but it was, the 15th through the 20th. We were already finding signs, and some of it was big. And I told the guy that was with me video, and I said, he's here somewhere. We're just not seeing him, or he's staying in or bedding somewhere where we're just not finding him, And in the area we were hunting, there's a lot of tall CRP grass, and not necessarily, CRP is what people plant, but this is more of just fields that the conservation and the Corps of Engineers and people like that, whoever runs the land that we hunt, they will just let these fields grow up, and they just get nasty. They get 5-foot tall grass, and they little twigs and branches and all kinds of stuff grow in them. And so most of the time I have found in a lot of those areas, those bucks just love that stuff. They can just go in there, they can just hide out, and they just love it. Well, so I figured that's where it was bedded. Well, so the next weekend we went and hunted, and I think this is the very last week of September, and we hunted in there we only had, I think we hunted 2 days or 3 days, so we hunted 4 or 5 times in there. And once again, we moved to different locations, never seen him. So I was getting pretty bummed and depressed about it. So the next weekend, so I went back, I worked for 3 or 4 days. That Thursday morning, I was like, all right, I'm going to head back up there on Thursday, get up there and hunt that evening. And I decided, I was like, well, that one thicket that we saw the first time I said he was bedded, I said the wind had actually shifted to where I could hunt the side of the field where that buck was actually at. And when we were up there before, the wind wasn't right. We finally was getting the north wind. So I went up to that north side, or to the south side, because the wind was blowing out of the north, and I parked at a totally different access point, and I walked quite a ways. And I snuck in there, and I had everything, and I had a little bit of wind. It wasn't a lot, but I had a little bit of wind, and so I got to that edge. And the thing about there where I was hunting, in a lot of places more north, there's a lot of open fields, but on the tree edges, the trees are because they get so much sunlight, there's branches everywhere, and it's hard to get a tree where you can see well. It's random. Every once in a while there'll be several trees you can get into where you can see, but I wanted to because the grass was so tall where I thought that deer was bedded, I was thinking I need to get up in the tree where I can see this good. So if he does stand up, I can be like, okay, he is bedded in here. And this field, this overgrown bedding thicket is what I call it. I would say I think when I ranged it, it's somewhere around 400 and something yards long and probably only about 100 and something wide. So it's just like a long, so he could be literally anywhere in there bedded. So I just wanted to try to figure out, where is this buck bedded if he's in here? And so I snuck in there. So that evening, it was Thursday, October the 6th. I slipped in there, got down to the edge, and I walked slow. I got in there real quiet. I was able to find a tree, and it was a smaller tree, but I knew it was on the edge where I could see decently out in the field and into that thicket. And I was able to get up in that tree, and the thing that has caused quite a bit about this that I just want to say something about is that I was literally doing this to have an observation sit. So I just wanted to see if I could find the buck. I hadn't seen him. I honestly had not very much faith. I was wearing a t-shirt, and work pants. I had zero camo on at all. And on the video, people are going nuts because some people kind of get aggravated about it, but then other people like it. It's funny because I wasn't just being like, I'm not trying to be this act like, camo doesn't matter. I normally wear camo, but I wasn't wearing a stitch of camo that day for some reason. And so I get up there, and I'm probably only 12 to 15 foot up, and I'm watching. Well, it's getting closer and closer to dark. I'm not seeing a single deer, nothing standing up. And I thought for sure at least does, small bucks would get up, and I'd see them every once in a while. Well, about 30 minutes before dark, some does come into the thicket. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching them and trying to figure out what in the world's going on, but at least I'm seeing some deer. And they mill around in the thicket a little bit, and then I can barely see them unless they get in the edge because the grass is so tall. Then they turn and they walk back towards the beams or whatever, I turn my video camera after I film them. I zoom out, I put the camera on me, and I basically say, well, at least we've seen some deer, but it's been pretty slow. I'm going to change things up. I got to do something different tomorrow. Hopefully we'll get into them tomorrow, whatever, something like that. And I turn my camera off, and I'm sitting there, and it's probably, I would say 2 to 3 minutes later, and to my left, right in the corner of the thicket, all of a sudden I see the buck. And he had came from that same direction, and he was coming into that thicket too. And I don't know if it's because of the way the moon was, and I'm not all into that or knowing what in the world was going on. I really honestly do not know what that buck was doing, but the same thing. He was coming into the thicket right when it's getting dark, like he was wanting to bed down at night, instead of in the day. I don't know what was going on, but he came in there, and I would say he was probably, as soon as I seen him, he was already probably 40 yards from me in the corner. So I automatically, my emotions, it's like 100 miles an hour. I see these giant horns, and I know, I didn't even have to think 2 seconds. I knew. I was like, that's the buck. His horns were so big, I knew, shoot her immediately. So I'm going crazy then because I flipped my camera back on, hit record, and then my bow is on the opposite side of the tree. So I am slowly trying to get well, luckily that buck stops and he starts rubbing a tree on the edge of that thicket, and he's just raking this tree. And I have the camera on him, and so I'm able to slowly get my bow and pull it over to the other side of the tree. Then he starts to walk like he's going to walk directly away from me, and so I was like, I'm getting ready to draw because I'm thinking, well, I got a shot right there, probably 40, 45 yards, as he's quartered away, walking away. And then all of a sudden he just turns and starts walking perfect broadside right through the thicket, right where I'd want him to walk. Right where I'd set up, walking right down the edge. And so I literally just get my bow, and I'm sitting there, and by then, it's getting close to dark, and like a lot of times whenever it starts getting close to dark, it starts getting calm. And so it is quiet as can be, and this buck is walking through there, and I draw my bow back, and he's fixing to walk through my shooting lane completely through. And I would say I had ranged some of the grass and the different areas, and he was right between 30 and 35 yards. But I drew my bow back, and when I'm sitting there watching him walk, and he's fixing to walk out of my shooting lane, and I did not want to grunt. Like I didn't want to make a noise because I was so nervous. It was so quiet. I was afraid if I make any noise at all, this buck is going to just take off out of my life. And right when I'm fixing to grunt or right when I'm fixing to make a noise to stop him, he stops on his own and turns directly away from me. And he's perfect broadside, 35 yards. And so now the grass is tall. And so, but it wasn't like big twigs. It's just, it looks like hay grass. So it's not like it's real thick stuff. And I just lower my pin. So I can't see his vitals. All I can see is his head and his back. I can see his back and like the top of his shoulders. You know, I can see probably about half of his body. So I just lower my pin right into the grass, right where his vitals are, and smack. I shoot. And he does a 360 in midair. I mean, he jumps way up in the air and does a 360 and takes off running, and then just is bulldozing through that thicket and bulldozing away. And I even was able to get that on film where you can see him, and his tail's twitching. But I was immediately kind of nervous because I was afraid that I might have shot his legs because he couldn't run with his front legs. And so I knew I either hit him right through the shoulder and got him good, or I hit his legs, and that's what I was nervous about. So I waited about 2 hours before I went after him. But I got there, when I got down there and looked for blood, I saw bubbles in the blood, and immediately when I seen that, I knew he was dead. And I just walked straight to where I'd seen him kind of quit running. I knew he was there then. You know, I knew I'd killed him, and I shot him perfect right through the shoulders and right through the heart, really. He had a hole right through his heart, and I'm talking about being happy. It was a buck of a lifetime. Now, I didn't know about the drop time. All I knew was that it was a giant frame, you know. So, and now when I saw him, as soon as I saw him, when I was in my stand and I saw him, I saw the drop time right away, you know. So I knew then. But when I saw him the first time, which would have been 2 weeks before that when I seen him the first time when I saw him in that field. And I'm gonna guarantee it's the same deer because he's literally in the same spot, and I knew it was a giant buck. But when he was running away, I saw him jump twice, like I said in my binos that first time in the car. I didn't see the specifics of his horns. All I saw that it was just a giant frame deer. So I was like, he's a shooter. But I didn't know that. No, I didn't know about any of that until I went down there. I knew he had drop times, but I didn't even know how big he was until I got down there and actually got my hands on him. And then I realized, I was like, oh my word, this thing is humongous.
That is a deer that I think every hunter dreams of. Just the symmetry in his frame. He's got some kickers, but my goodness, what a symmetrical frame. And then those double drops just add so much more. I can't believe it. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was super cool because he has just a little bit of dried velvet on that one drop tine, and it's so awesome because I've never killed one. You know, a lot of guys I know that killed some with like a little bit of dried velvet on one of the tines or something like that, or right around the base. But I've never killed one early, you know, where he had that. And this one probably would have kept it unless he would have eventually rubbed it off, but that was really neat too. And I mean, he had tickers on almost every single point he had. You know, I think he had 13 or 14 scoreable points. So it was just a buck of a lifetime, and especially for public land. It's just lucky. I didn't know he had all that. I knew it was a big buck. I just didn't know it was that big, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think that speaks to your experience, how you pinpointed that deer and got in there fairly aggressively and got it done. I mean, that is an incredible story. Are you going to have him shoulder mounted? I mean, you gotta, I would think.
Yeah. I am. I'm going to get it done. And I took it to the taxidermist, and it's a younger kid that's been doing, I mean, he's done it for several years now, but we had two older taxidermists in our area, and they both had quit in the last 2 years, and so he started doing them. Well, I took it to him, and he said out of all he's done, I think he said in the time that he's done it, he's done over 300 deer heads. So 300 bucks he's done, and he has never done one with even a single drop tine. So that shows you how odd they are, you know, to get one. That's why people want them so bad, is because, I mean, you can get all different things about antlers, but just getting that drop tine, so many people want that because it is rare. It's just unbelievable. And to kill one that has two, it's just lucky. I mean, I didn't know that deer had that. I just,
yeah, that's awesome though. I'm so happy for you. You know, and that's not the first big deer you were on, and I know you've probably been on a lot more, but I think wasn't there one last year you guys got on? Maybe your buddy ended up taking him. Another giant frame deer that you guys were tracking down.
Oh my word, it was huge. Yeah, I missed that buck at 60 yards, that big one. Yeah. Yeah, I probably
Well,
shouldn't even took the, I probably shouldn't even took the shot, but I missed him and then my buddy killed him. I think he killed him 4 days later or 5 days later he killed him. Yeah,
yeah,
and that deer, I got the footage on that buck is incredible. When that deer walks through the field, it's just, his horns are so big. It's wild. And that was on public land too, so. But we
yeah,
kind of just, like I said, the key to that, and for anybody that's listening and wants to do anything like that, the key to it really is just, people, you just have to get out there and just go, go, go. Cause I mean, like, yeah, after I've killed this buck, I've had a billion people ask where I go hunting. I'm like,
right,
I'm not going to tell you where I'm going,
yeah,
but you can find, there's deer like that out there all over the place, but it just takes so much time. And a lot of people just don't have the time to do it. And that's the only thing that's helping us. We're just every year learning more and more and more and just finding newer and new spots, and that's just the way you got to do it, if you're going to do it that way.
yeah. Well, that's what we talk about sometimes. This deer's dead, so there's no point in asking about where you shot this deer because he's gone.
Yeah.
There's plenty, but
Yeah,
there's plenty
exactly.
more out there.
Yeah, it is. It's funny because even you go through like even YouTube channels of people that have a lot more followers than I have. I mean, in the comments, it's so hilarious because everybody's asking, where are you at in Oklahoma? Where are you at in Missouri? Where are you
Yeah.
at in Kansas? Everybody wants to know where you're at, but if they're trying to just get a little, and I understand. I mean, if you don't have time, if they can get just one little
Yeah.
clue that'll help them, that'll makes all the difference. And I just try to tell people, I was like, just go somewhere where there's a lot of different places you can go, and maybe you'll get lucky. Because even if I gave you my spot, that don't mean you're going to find deer like that,
Yeah.
But one of the things in my video, I did put in there the footage of the bucks that I'd seen the week before season opened. And when you see it, you'll know what I'm talking about. But the deer that I've seen the one buck, he is bigger than the buck I shot. When people see that, they're like, oh, where are you hunting? Because they know,
Yeah.
they see all these deer, and then it adds up, and they're like, man, we need to know what's going on. And I can understand that, but it's incredible to get to do this, to get to hunt like this and get to have a chance at a whitetail. Because most people that hunt will never even get a chance to even see a buck like that. Most people that hunt in the South and other areas, they won't ever even get to see one like that. And it's just a blessing. And I don't really put it to that I'm a good hunter or anything. It just happened that I've learned a little bit over time, and I got lucky, and he walked past me because I could have hunted and never even seen him again.
Yeah, there are so many variables that go into play. It's ridiculous. And when you think about everything that's actually against you when you go out hunting, you almost feel like just turning around and going home because it is so much chance on a lot of that. But you do a little bit of your homework and spend the time in the woods. That's one of those things when people ask, well, where'd you get that deer? Well, out in the woods. You spend enough time out there, you're going to stumble across some nice deer, maybe not this caliber, but you're going to find some stuff out. That's the fun part about it. You never know what's out there.
Yeah, exactly.
So, well, awesome. Congratulations. That's got to feel good after that encounter last year, finally catching up with one and getting one on the ground. That's so fantastic.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I really appreciate you having me on here. It means a lot to me. I appreciate it, and hopefully you guys will have some luck this year. Are you getting ready to go to your farm in Kansas later?
Yeah, we're holding off. We're trying to be patient. This cold front came through starting on Sunday and really kicked off a lot of buck movement. Judging from the cameras and kind of what I've seen so far, it's right at borderline shooting light at night, what we've been seeing. But we did have a new buck show up that we're pretty excited about. So, the chance is looking good. Unfortunately, we're going to be pretty busy here for a couple weeks, but maybe the last weekend of the month, and then we'll take a week here in November and do our thing. So we'll catch up with something.
Well, good luck. Hope you guys
sure
have some
we'll have a lot of fun.
kill ones. Awesome.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Appreciate it. We'll, you'll see, I'm sure if we do, I'll show you some pictures or something.
Yeah. I follow you guys. I'm going to follow you guys on Instagram, so I'll be able to see it if you guys get one.
One of the things that, we're always hunting our own family farm, and it has a lot of advantages, but you hear like your story about public land. The advantage to that is you get to move around. If you don't see something in one area, you get to go and pick up stakes and move on. And we feel, since we do have the land, which we're fortunate to have, we feel like we just hunker down there and take the best one off of that. So it's somewhat limiting at times because you do get a pretty good feel of what's out there. In some years there's, maybe the surrounding properties have harvested most of the mature deer, so you kind of feel like you're down on your luck. But
Right.
really, all in all, really fortunate to have a little piece of ground to hunt on. So it's all good.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yep.
So, well, I do appreciate it, and good luck to the rest of your crew the remainder of the season. I guess your brother and you got some buddies out here soon, I suppose.
They're all filming still, and we're fixing to. I got 2 brothers filming, and then I got a cousin filming, and they all still got Missouri tags and looking around. And one of my brothers actually moved to Oklahoma. He's hunting in Oklahoma, and then we're all making a trip. I think the second week of November, we're all going to go to Oklahoma for a whole week, and all of us are going to be together in a camp and hunt, and so that's going to be real fun. But it should be good. Hopefully we'll have a little bit more luck this year and be able to share some more stories.
Yeah, that'll be great. Is that going to be your only out of state this year to Oklahoma?
This year, yeah. We're just going to go to Oklahoma. We're not going to do any more, which most of the time we normally stick pretty close. We normally don't go like way up. Now I do go elk hunting every once in a while. I've killed 2 bulls with my bow, but we normally just stay around close. Like we'll go to Kentucky, Oklahoma, Arkansas, things like that. We don't normally go real far. And like I said, it's mainly because everybody has jobs and it's hard for them to get away.
Yeah, exactly. Well, good deal. Well, good luck to the rest of the crew, and we'll look for some success here in a month or so.
All right. I sure do appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on.